Most of our examinations are information and recall. We need to change to achieve professional competence and practice social values. How do we understand again this? When I am saying that enumerate 5 symptoms of this, it is just information and recall. If any remedy, 5 symptoms, if somebody says and we pass it, does that make him competent to practice and find a civillimum? No. We need to make a more competency based, that these are the competencies that he is able to collect the information from the textbook, he is able to analyze those informations, he is able to build those informations, and he is able to create a portrait of certain drug on one side and portrait of the patient on another side. We need to map these competencies rather than asking 5 symptoms of this and 10 symptoms of that. It doesn't help. We have always been experts in content, because Dharmendra sir asked in the morning, how many of us are being trained in modern medical education technology? And I did not see any hand which went up at that time, because we feel that knowing subject and giving knowledge is only important thing. But no, that is important, but along with that, how to deliver in a particular time and circumstance so that the student develop those competencies. So what is required is, teachers have to become educators. Medical science, medical education is not part of our curriculum. Passing post-graduation does not make us good teacher. We don't have BA, B.Ed and M.Ed. So some aspects we need to translate ourselves from a content delivered to an educator. The goal is cure of disease. Existing, what is advised is a prevention and promotion of health. The methods of teaching is compartmentalized and linear. I'll give an example. When you are taking in physiology excretory system in a classroom, examination of urine in practical have been done some other time. They are not aligned. It makes no sense. That's one way. The second way is that if you are taking CVS system in anatomy and same time if you take physiology, you can save a lot of time. You can also take care of fragments and student can correlate. So integrated teaching is something has to be picked up. Now this was said when 1988. Where are we now? 2023. So Medical Commission built up this CBDC document in 2018. The Ayurveda Commission came up last year. So we are already, all of us are late. If you look at finally the first 6 aphorisms, you will see the directions from Hahnemann were very clear. It took centuries for us to understand it. We are just translating this into modern education. Do you agree the highest ideal of cure should be the objective of medical education? All the knowledge is required should form a curriculum and syllabus. The aphorism number 4, 5, 6, preserver of health, the case taking, the causation and building up portrait and unprejudiced observation is a training methods and technique. It's very well defined. So now I am connecting it with to the World Congress of Medical Education. Mission of the physician, aim of the physician, train teacher as an educator and rewarding them adequately. Highest ideal of cure is objective of medical education, curriculum and examination to ensure not passing but professional competence and student goes out with social values based on concept of outcome based and competency based medical education. Enlarge the setting of education to include community and national health program for promotion and prevention of disease with integration of practice and science. Now this was the background which was considered. Training methods are active learning, self-directed, independent study and problem solving. Now this is all talking of the higher domains. Higher cognitive domain, higher psychomotor domain and higher affective domain. So we need to map the students to start from a lower domain to go to the higher domain because we want them to serve community. So just having a knowledge and problem solving will not until they have got a skill and they have got an affective domains. So foundation of homeopathic education is based on individualization. And how do we individualize? By study of man. And how do we study man? Through his interaction with the environment. And if you want to train our student at this level, the organon has to be the foundation. The repertory, mathematics and clinical medicine with related disciplines are the outshoot. And what does it need? It needs that all the subjects have to be studied from homeopathic perspective. The homeopathic anatomy, the homeopathic physiology. I think it sounds foreign, but it should come like this. Because the way we look at the man as a structure or a man as a function is different than how the science looks at, the current medical science. So we have to look at all the subjects because it is an outshoot. If you know anatomy, you know their representation in repertory. If you know physiology, its representation in repertory. If you know anatomy and physiology, its correlation with mathematica. If that happens, then probably the students can be given an value-based education and homeopathic mindset from first BHMS. We don't want, they learn all the things and attach homeopathy. It is homeopathy in center and rest all at periphery. And this we can only do by applied part. So rather than reading anatomy in too much of detail, the applied part is much more important. The applied physiology is much more important from a perspective of homeopathy, because anatomy for a surgeon, anatomy for a physician and anatomy for a homeopath will qualitatively differ. Same thing is with physiology. So if we are consciously, so what decides this applied aspect is what we are visualizing our graduates. I know all of you are hungry, but then without going through this, it will be real difficult. And the only way you can do is through case-based and problem-based learning, e-learning, community-centered learning, and integrations. The outcome-based education is that the decision about the curriculum is driven by the outcome the student should display by the end of the course. So, by end of the graduation, what should be the student's competency? And then you decide the knowledge, skill, value and attitude by integrating and measured and assess them. That is competency. So do we need to change our outlook and approach to education training? Yes or no? Then there is a point in going for reform. Yes or no? I want a louder answer. Yeah. Is this statement right or wrong? Right. So, Commission did an effort to make a curriculum which will address the future problems. So, we have to have a future-looking attitude. So, modern system is student-centered, teacher-centered. We have to bring in student-centered modern system. Information gathering to problem-based, discipline-based to integrated, hospital-based to community-based, standard program to elective. So we need to shift from traditional system to modern system, from apprenticeship-based to systematic. So this we have already dealt with. The last one is important. Currently, student is a client. He come to college to study, and we feel we are responsible for teaching him. We need to change the perspective. Student is a partner in learning. Make him equally responsible for his own learning. Let him go home, read, assign, flip classroom, whatever different methodologies, but make him partner. Don't take up all the loads on your head. We need to have adaptive curriculum with adaptive learning, creative use of technology, and program-focused assessment for learning rather than the last summative compartmentalized assessment. And what will it demand? It demand collaboration. Collaboration at what level? Between departments, between teachers and students, between teacher and management. So the larger collaboration will take us to this. Now, with this background, I'll tell you how this template has come being into. Each government, whichever may be in a center, they have certain expectations when they run certain courses. And there are national goals which homeopath has to abide, or we as a collective responsibility to take it. So what is expected from a homeopathic graduate? He should be able to communicate the strength of homeopathy, its limitation and applicability in a healthcare of community, society and individual by integrating of medical services and delivering effective health care. Our graduate can do this. Okay. What should be the purpose of a graduate is to help in health for all. Health rights of all citizens in a common diseases, mind you, common diseases, in a promotive, preventive, curative and rehabilitative processes by holistic approach through competency with scientific temper, by proficiency in the profession, promote healthy living by developing a skill to perpetuate homeopathy, practice it with zeal, fulfilling social and professional obligations, and able to establish parallel to other scientific healing methods. These are the expectations of a government from a homeopathy graduate. They are quite down to earth. Now each institute also has got their own goal when they run courses from their own students and passed out. What do they want to bring out? A competent homeopathic physician who is having ability for clinical diagnosis, homeopathic management, case taking, physical examinations and investigations. He becomes a member of health team in promotive, preventive, curative and rehabilitative programs. Rationale of practice is integrated approach and has got a stable mind for cross-pathy referral wherever required. The IU stream, non-IU stream, there are so many things where you need and you understand your scope and limitations. He has a professional responsibility and a human attitude in appreciating psycho, social, economical, cultural and environmental factor of a society. He is able to identify the community health problem, understand the resolution by homeopathic approach and able to assess the result in a nearby community. He is responsible and committed and sensitivity to environmental sustainability and engage in community work. He has a research aptitude with the critical thinking, with the documentation skill which takes us to evidence-based practices which we lacked, and we could not produce documents to show the homeopathic efficacy of so many diseases based on scientific research principles. We may claim a lot of things. And he becomes a lifelong learner. He is able to manage the resources with homeopathy of National Health Program, human material, hospital, inventory management, skills. As a healthcare team member, he is able to communicate with the patients and community and with his own colleagues. And he is able to work in all types of healthcare setting. He has a personal integrity, sense of responsibility, dependability and shows concern for other individuals. Now the nation and institute may have their own goals. The learners also come with their own goals. He wants to become compassionate clinician in promotive, preventive, curative, palliative care and a holistic care. Leadership in healthcare, able to collect, analyze, synthesize and communicate the healthcare data. Healthcare team member and colleague is able to communicate with the patients and community and with colleagues. Continuous improvement in skill and knowledge and lifelong learner. And he is a committed professional who excel in patient and community care in an ethical and responsive way. Now these all aspects were taken and integrated while formulating as an integrated things that what we expect our graduate to be. The experts did brainstorming out of all this and then they have come up with the program outcome. Probably when you open your document, they are there. So what is the first program outcome? So what we expect our graduate to be after 5.5 years, he has to be primary care homeopath. What do you mean by primary care homeopath? Who is able to manage patient at a primary level, not secondary and tertiary level of management. Because we have left it for postgraduates. He has a knowledge, skill, ability and confidence and he is able to do the primary care of patient and community care in holistic manner. He can assess the common clinical condition, diagnose the common clinical condition. He knows the socio-demographic, economical, psychological, cultural and environmental factors which affect health. He understands the scope and limitation of homeopathy in a primary health care to individual and community. He is able to apply homeopathic principles for promotive, preventive, curative, prophylactic, palliative and rehabilitative care. He is able to practice with medical ethics, considering homeopathic principles. He is able to associate with other healthcare system by knowing the scope and relevance of other system, cross-referral, life-saving measures to address clinical emergencies. He develops an aptitude for lifelong learning by critical thinking, self-reflection and research orientation for developing evidence-based homeopathic practice. He has a communication skill and attitude so that he becomes a responsible team members in various healthcare settings and contribution in larger goals of national healthcare. So we went from national health to institutional health to departmental to subject. Now we will be addressing to subject content. learning experience, and this is a cycle. So from national goal to institutional learner goal, we have formulated the program outcome of the BHMS, and now we will come to the first BHMS. So once you have visualized a graduate of 5.5 years, what a first BHMS will contribute in making that student, because you can't make 5.5 years things in 1.5 years. So each year contribute in a own way to develop competencies which we want as a program outcome at the end of 5.5 years. See, the problem with the medical education, the curriculum or the subject content is so vast. I think you must realize it's so vast, so you can't teach it in a classroom. So what is an alternative? You want to deliver all the content, or you want to make student competent to make meaning out of content and apply? So if you want to make student competent, then you have to develop their general competencies. What way? When he is able to extract the data, he is able to collect the data, he is able to analyze the data, he is able to process the data, he is able to plan the action, he is able to does the analysis of action result complex, and he is again go back and take the feedback. So our interest is not teaching content. Our interest is to develop him a competent homeopathic physician and a competent citizen of India who has got ability to solve the problems in a hand. The only way one can solve the problems in a hand is passing through the collection of information till final resolution of the problem. That is why we need to concentrate on these generic competencies, because we want to develop those generic competencies and not specific alone. So that if you can teach 50 drugs, you have got confidence that other 50 drugs the student will be able to learn by his own. Right? So now we need to also simultaneously understand whether the student is, we are making him competent or we are making him dependent. You know, we feel happy when student goes on referring patient or go on asking the solutions for his patient. But we need to reflect that there was a problem somewhere in our training that he needs so much of support from us. So these are the dimensions which needs a general competencies. Cognitive, personal, interpersonal and community. Analytical capacity, synthetic, objective outlook, organizing and planning, problem solving, information gathering, documentation, information, management, creative thinking, holistic approach, system-based thinking. Now they are all form a fundamental base for homeopathic practice. At personal level, self-reflection, self-awareness, safety compliances, lifelong learning, compassion, personal integrity, healthy coping mechanisms, flexibility, and dealing with uncertainty. Now this is important, dealing with uncertainty. We as a medical profession, every other day the uncertainty visits us. So are we conscious in developing those strength and competency in a student? Interpersonal, he has to be empathetic, leadership, teamwork, collaboration, respect for privacy and autonomy, communication skills, oral and written, and executive ability, ethical awareness, community awareness and safety awareness. Now these are the generic competencies, you know, where it's not just alone as a homeopathic physician, but he can function as a competent citizen of a community. So once you have decided the program outcome, you will be able to map that how my course or my subject will contribute in going or traveling or reaching to the program outcome. So if at the end of 1.5 year, if I am able to develop these competencies in a student, his march towards program outcome will be smoother. So then we have to also define my course outcome. So what at the end of the 1.5 year, from a perspective of anatomy, what I will deliver, from a perspective of physiology, what I will deliver. So each subject has to map their own 1.5 year outcome. So possibly first BHMS course outcome is student is able to have genetic anatomy from genetic evolution and developmental anatomy, ethics of anatomy, structural, micro, macro organization and evolution, structural and functional correlations, anatomy and physiology, the vertical integration with clinical subjects, correlation with homeopathic philosophy, concept of man, mathematica, repertory and pharmacy, and correlation in interpreting investigations. So if this is first BHMS outcome, then I pick up as a structural part, anatomy, as a functional part, physiology, as a medicine, knowledge of medicine, homeopathic medicines, pharmacy, and correlations with the organon, mathematica and repertory. So if this is a background, then how do we decide, how do we go about delivering these competencies? First thing is to decide what is needed. Second is how much it is needed. Third is how much we should deliver and how we taste it. So any subject matter or content when you take up, you decide whether it is must know. Without that, he cannot be a competent homeopathic physician able to deliver a function as a, able to take primary health care. So 70, 20 and 10, that's one first step. Then what is it required? Perforated appendix requires surgery, that's what. But then you don't require to show how the surgery will perform. You don't have to show that how I will be doing. That's not part of it. So how much he should know, how much he should know how much he shows how and does. So we need to, first year student, if he knows the steps of case taking, good. At the end, if he knows how case taking has to be done, then under control condition, if he is able to show certain steps of case taking, and then you send him independently and get the case taking done. So how much to expect from first year, second year, third year, fourth year? If we are conscious, we will do service to our student. And once you do this, it's based on, these three pillars of competency framework, which Munir sir discussed about Bloom, Gilbert and Miller. So we need to decide or divide all our objectives into these three, because we will know which requires what type of input. If it is cognitive, what type of input. If it is psychomotor, where and how and when is to be delivered. You can't deliver psychomotor in a classroom, right? So they will form the things. Then knowledge, at what level of knowledge is required. Whether you just require a recall is good enough, yes. Or you require them to read, understand and interpret, or you want them also to suggest the problem solving part of it. So same thing at psychomotor and affective. So if we are doing this analysis before each lecture, it will give us a guideline how much to give, when to give and how to evaluate, and whether we are on a right track. This is, we have dealt with integration. I'll just show you what is called horizontal integration. It's in the same year, sit together, intra and interdepartmental integrations. So anatomy, physiology, mathematics, you can sit together. you can teach together, you can plan teaching complementary. So these can be done, which can save time and which can make things relevant. If as a homeopath somebody will tell you it's not required, you just memorize the symptoms and it's enough, then student will understand anatomy, physiology has no meaning. But when you are able to connect anatomy, physiology, psychology to mathematica, to organon and repertory, their interest in subject will change. Their approach to subject will change. The same way you can have a vertical integration, at least our current structure will, you can always say that, okay, this thing is important for this subject. Please keep this in mind. So in future, if he reads it, he understands that in anatomy lecture or in physiology or in mathematica, they have referred this. There are certain places which they do this integration, they start with one system and they complete that system from anatomy, physiology to medicine and management, same time. And there is something called spiral, like subject like organon, it's there in first year, second year, third year, fourth year. So you start with the simpler idea and become complex, like case taking what I said. So integration reduces the fragmentation, it prevents repetition and waste of time. Students learn to apply their knowledge to clinical and community practice. Inter and intra-departmental collaboration happens. And rationalization of teaching resource. Somebody was saying 60 hours, iska diya hai, it is less. Uska diya hai. But then we can actually rationalize by doing this because there is a lot of repetitions which happens. Now you see how this legend come into being. Course code, topic number followed by serial number of specific learning objectives and outcome, generic competencies to be achieved from the topic, Miller's pyramid, knows how, shows how, specific competencies to be acquired from the topic, description of specific learning objectives for the topic, then deciding cognitive, affective, psychomotor, Bloom's domain, then Gilbert's level, deciding must know, desirable to know and nice to know, then teaching learning methods, assessment methods and integration. Is the template clears? And now the next question is how to read it. If you are able to read and make a meaning out of it, you will realize that majority of things you are doing it without being conscious of it. It gives us a structure to fall back. It makes us consciousness to deliver, and it standardizes the processes. And once this is done, the competency is mapped. And once the competency is mapped, you can be very confident that, okay, the person who is passing out will have these minimum competencies. Subject area, specific learning objectives, levels, Miller, Bloom, Gilbert, teaching learning methods, assessment and integration. So let's take few examples. Subject area is introduction to repertory. Specific competency is acquainted with the tools and search for remedy. One of the SLO is define repertory. Must know. He knows from Miller and must know. Bloom is cognitive. Remember and recall. Lecture, small group discussions. MCQ or Viva Voce is a formative. There is no summative assessment in repertory, and you can have an horizontal with Mathematica and Organon. Are you becoming familiar with something? This is how you have got the whole table. Let's take another example, physiology and biochemistry. Clinical and applied physiology, demonstrate history taking process. So demonstrate history taking process, he knows must, he shows how, affective domain, responding, demonstration and role play, information gathering, observation, okay, direct observation or practical, and integration. So this integration with organon is possible, right? Clinical and applied physiology, record ECG. Record ECG in a volunteer, desirable to know, it's not must know. Shows how, psychomotor, level 2, demonstration, information gathering, integration of problem, observation, OSPI, objective structured practical examination, and integration with medicine. So is things becoming clearer? So afternoon session you will attempt all this in, so you start afternoon sessions by working on these templates rather than discussing your confusion. Don't start discussing your confusion at all. Attempt these templates and then discuss the confusion. Until you have a hand-on experience of active learning, of participative learning, you will not see, because as a student when we are in a classroom, we have a lot of questions before we even attempt. So please attempt first before asking questions. So there are certain other examples which I will not take here. And if we want to change, then who has to be in a center? Who can do this? Louder. Who can do this? I am not able to listen. Who has to do this? Who is the centerpiece in this reform? Teacher. So teacher has to do curriculum design. He has to have a demonstrate the teaching methodology or apply. Participate in assessment based on this. And one of the huge area is waiting for all of us is an education research. It's a huge area world over. So homeopathic education research is one of the areas which we should take it up for our future work. So what is the difference between structure and process based and competency based? The first one is content knowledge acquisition and outcome knowledge acquisition. So from content to outcome, we need to shift our focus from content to outcome. Driving force has to be learner and not teacher. We don't have to drive, we have to direct. You saw in the morning one cartoon Munir sir had shown with that stick. He was guiding the student. Path of learning is hierarchical, so we need to change. Currently it is teacher to learner, but you see both way arrow, non-hierarchical. Responsibility of content, not alone teacher, it has to be student. Student should be encouraged to collect content. We help them to collect content, organize content, make sense of those content, demonstrate application. So student has to be the center and the responsibility has to be given to the student. But our responsibility increases further. Because collecting content and delivering lecture is very simple. Shift the focus from knowledge acquisition to knowledge application. Multiple objective measures for evaluation and not single way in which we are doing. Not proxy. authentic, real task of professional. And setting of evaluation is not gestalt, direct observation. Evaluation non-referenced. You have to have, lot of our evaluation, we don't have criteria. It's based on lot of subjective evaluation. Need to go from summative to formative because you cannot assess a competency development and small part of it. You give time to the students based on their ability, don't push them. Because this is most important. Student pass out without being competent. And we have to think about the community whom that student is going to treat. Because we are not going to refer our parents to that student who is not competent. And I tell you, one of the article I was reading, and one nurse was caught into, not competent or some malpractice and thing happened. And the investigative agencies, this happened after 10 years of her passing out. And investigative agencies found out that she was not trained properly. And they traced back to the college from where she was trained. And the actions against college started. So beware, time is coming. We will have to face all the music. So this is a tribute. If we want real to follow Hahnemann, we have to change our way of looking at education and training. Thank you.
We also have our guest for today, Dr. Neeta Maheskar, Director, Northeastern Institute of Ayurveda and Homeopathy, Shillong, here with us, and Dr. Gautam Ash, member of NCH. May I request our principal, Dr. N.C. Dole sir, to felicitate them also. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Further, a session on orientation to the syllabus implementation will be continued at James Homeopathic Medical College lecture halls. I would request all the delegate campus. So please avail the buses, have your lunch, and then we'll be meeting again in the orientation to the syllabus sessions. Thank you, everyone.
That there is a more application-based aspect has been taken up. So, what the morning session, they have already
the surfaces, name the ligaments. These objectives, teaching, learning methods and media, and assessment. Okay. So, what type of assessment will be there at the end of your class? Is it summative or formative? Formative. As you saw, summative is only occasional and it is terminal, or it decides pass or fail. So, this is the formative assessment that is going to be there. In this table, you can see SLOs are defined. These are not serial numbers. Whatever we have identified as SLOs have to be mentioned there in the serial SLO number 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one refers to this. First one, for example, refers to define nerve plexus. When the learner is attending your lecture, what is the content of your subject matter of your lecture? Keywords have to be mentioned in the content box. For defining a nerve plexus, first of all, he should know what is a nerve. He should know what are the types of nerves. and you should also know what is the nerve plexus. So these are the keywords. So for each SLO, there are certain keywords which you will mention in the box that is there. Okay? Now if you ask a question to the student, what is nerve made up of? What is the answer you are expecting? What is the nerve made up of? What is the answer student is going to? If you ask a question to the student, what is the nerve made up of? What is the answer you are expecting? What the students may answer?
Good value. Good value.
Okay. I am asking you a question. What is a noun?
It is actually student. Yes, I define the.
What is your answer? What is a noun? Can you ask me? Can you answer to me? What is noun made up of? Somebody said axons and nerve fibers. Neurons is not the completely correct answer. Each student will answer this one. So at the end of your class, nerve is made up of nerve fibers is the learning that should happen. Okay. So that is what that is the purpose of this. So we will identify the keywords that are present there in each of these specific learning objects. Okay. So second one, that's about the formation thing, root ventral rami of C5 to C8 and T1, then the stages and so on. That is mentioned there. So the content column will contain keywords of your lecture that we will be writing. Then second heading is the teaching learning methods and media. So what the teacher is going to do in the class? If it is a lecture, a theory class, it is a lecture, or if it is a practical demonstration. And media, you know, what are the media? Yeah. The tools that we are using. The tools that we are using are the media. That has to be mentioned there.
Sir, what is bus session?
Bus session, like, yeah, you come to that. Now, learner activity. This is important here. Learner activity. If the learner sits in the class and listens, is not enough. So, learning activity has to be split into two areas, or two areas are there. One is in the class, what he is going to do, how we are going to engage him and make him learn. Second is after the class.
Narrowed down to the competencies, and now we have even narrowed down to the SLOs, specific learning objectives. So if you see, if you go reverse way, if the student is able to achieve the SLOs, he is going to achieve the competency. If he is able to achieve the competency, he will be able to achieve the course outcomes. And when he is able to achieve the course outcomes, he will be able to achieve the program outcomes. So this is how the competency table has been formulated, and this is where the assessment part comes into play. You are going to assess the SLOs. Indirectly you are going to assess whether he has achieved that competency, then you are indirectly assessing whether he has achieved that particular course outcome, and lastly the program outcome. Then these SLOs, cognitive, psychomotor, affective. Cognitive means knowledge, psychomotor means where practical skills are involved, affective means where values are involved. So each SLO has further been classified as per Miller's pyramid. Each SLO also has been classified as per Bloom's taxonomy. Then come levels. Yes, remember, recall, understand, and last, problem solving. So for cognitive, it starts from the lowest, that is remember and recall. It goes to the second level, which is understanding, and lastly, which is problem solving. Psychomotor, imitation, control, and automatism. Receive, respond, internalize. So these are the levels of the Gilbert's level. We are not expecting that our student must be only at the lowest level. We are expecting that the student goes to the higher level. So if the student is at lowest level, that is remember, recall, he must also go till the level of problem solving. Here he must be automatism, and here at least respond or internalize. Remember, recall, define. So these are the words. If you say define homeopathic pharmacy, he is just going to recall. It's just going to remember and then it's going to tell you the definition. That is why it is remember and recall. If you
physical constitutions, sphere of action, yes, pathogenesis, ailments from. Okay. See, this is how what you have been trying to do. Now, what is very important for you here is we have some set objectives. Like for example, for calculator, at the end of this session, the learner shall be able to. Now, if you just see here, list. If you see here, we have something called as enumerate, correlate, mention, list. See, these are what we call it as active work. And when you are told is, we are also giving them the sphere of action and pathogenesis of calcareka. So before that, I am using one active verb, and that is enumerate. We will also give you the list of active verbs at the end of the class, so that you can start using the appropriate active verbs in your syllabus. Yes, sir. Because yeah, okay. So I mean, if you look at the template, there is something called as Bloom's domain, and if you also come here, there is something called as the Hilbert's level. Okay. So what you can do is list the common names, sources, prover, preparation of calcareka. Which domain do you think it will come in Bloom's domain? Is it at the level of which one? Is it at the level of cognitive, psychomotor, or affective? So this one, first one, list the common name is more of cognitive. Very good, correct. Second thing is enumerate the sphere of action.
Psychology is a science.
See, in the beginning, sir has really rightly pointed out that unless and until the anatomy of a special senses is not known, the psychology will not be understood. So how many senses we have? We have only 5 senses. But along with that, what is the location of those senses in the brain? What if the connection is not established? So what kind of expressions will come? So to understand this kind of expression, the normalcy of the brain part, certain areas, certain sections needs to be understood. Of the physiological functions of that brain area, and the psychology teacher will take integration or take note of this learning and take the help of whatever has been taught in the respective classes and will guide the first year student for the psychology. So if this is the location of the eye, so what happens if the eye is not functioning properly, or how this stimuli they get the images in the retina? No? Then probably the concept of color, the shape, what we have listed in the part first slide, the student will get a clear connections with this. Am I clear, or I am sounding little difficult? So it's a connection.
Psychology will be discussed in second term of first year.
Yes. By that time already the first part where the anatomy of brain and the physiology section will be done.
And another doubt is like how different it is from the previous teaching methodology.
It is not different, sir, at all. That's why since morning even the resource person is telling that competency based curriculum is not different. Only the structure or the format is little different.
Seems like previously we were teaching what is psychology, what is behavior,
Yes.
and the definition of behavior.
Yes.
Again, what kind of science is psychology,
Correct.
branches, and utility of psychology.
Yes, same. Nothing is changed. But here you are making a conscious connections with the anatomy, with the physiology, and extending to the concept of observer in the organelle. You are at the same time you are extending how a behavior can be studied in the patient, how the materia medica images has these behavioral changes, like restlessness of arsenic, restlessness of rustrox, the restlessness and agitation of argentum nitricum. So how it is different, why it is different, and in the first year, if the student is able to identify where in which repertory the particular section should be referred if I have to see the restlessness of mind. In the first year, they will be allowed to study only 3 repertories: Kent repertory, Boni-Hussain repertory and Bower repertory. So if I am talking of anxiety with restlessness, the first year student should be just able to understand which chapter of the Kent repertory he has to refer or obey. But for that he need to have all this background clear with him. Otherwise, if you teach all the subject independently and if the interconnections and the interrelationship is not available, we generally, the student are tend to forget this.
Yeah. Then next that mind after having some rubrics. So it starts alphabetically, that is also desirable to know. Now it will be nice to know from the person if he is telling that mind rubric, first rubric is abundant, then next rubric is abrupt, and under abrupt there is natural and direct. So that will be nice to know.
Good examples. I'll just give one more example. One favorite is evolution of repertories, where which repertory was written in which year. So sometimes we expect our students to memorize all the years, but is it really that important? So this is how we are classifying into must know, nice to know, desirable to know area. Yes, sir.
One thing, must know things. We are dealing with rubrics are important. The applied part of repertory is rubric.
Yeah.
But how rubrics they came into the repertory, what are the general principles behind arrival of those rubrics in the repertory, that part is not dealt in the repertory syllabus anywhere, which is the most important and basic part which should be known by all the teachers. Then only we can impart it to the students. So that's why under the must know topics, that part also should be included, that is general principles of repertory and repertorization.
So general principles of repertory, repertorization, that will probably come in the second, third year. So like sir said, these are again must know areas. So I was giving an example. So these are nice to know areas. So like this has also been classified. Okay. So classifying the SLO into must know, desirable to know, nice to know areas on the basis of importance and usefulness in the ultimate professional standard. So we must be able to classify that what is a nice to know area, what is a must know area. Must know area is that the student must know, and this is the same thing that we must ask in the exam. Otherwise what will happen is we will just be asking, okay, when this particular repertory was written, half the viva can go in that. But is that important? In the larger context, whether he will be able to utilize repertory or not. So this is how again we can classify, and like sir gave good example that first and at least last chapter of Kent he must know. It is a must know area. He must know that Kent repertory starts with mind, because it has been structured in that way.